The irony of this podcast is that my clients do call me daddy.
Qu'est-ce que j'appelle te nommer?
Well, hello, everybody. Welcome back to Saint to Siren podcast with the Violatrix. That's me, Pamela. And I'm excited for today's episode. It's going to be a little like the way I speak, almost ADHD. We're going to cover a lot of different topics, but a few things as we kick off this episode. Number one, I want to acknowledge that we have made it to episode 10. I didn't think we would actually make it to episode 10. I really thought I would call it quits after 2 to 3 episodes. But I'm excited that here we are, and you guys have been amazing. And it's not me, it's us. It's been a journey, and I'm really excited. When we get to 12, that's a big number, and it's just 2 episodes away. So I'm very excited. 2, thank you all again for the comments, the feedback, the suggestions that you write underneath my podcast episodes on Spotify. Without that feedback, again, I can't deliver to you what it is that you're looking for, and I can't curate the episode. So again, your feedback is paramount, is greatly appreciated, as is when you rank or rate the podcast and share, and when you're listening to multiple episodes in a day. That's just crazy work, and I'm so appreciative. So couple of quick things as well. Last episode, I mentioned that old Pam with my old previous pre-nose job, when I first started on Night Flirt, and my name was Adriana, Adrianna, Adriana, 2 N's, 2 A's at the end. I was able to find where those pictures are. They were under Flickr, FLICKR.com, which is like a really old photo sharing site. Again, we're hearkening back to the days of MySpace. So if you look up Adriana, NNAA, Adriana with 2 N's, 2 A's on Night Flirt, Adriana Night Flirt, it's flickr.com. That's where I found those pictures. I didn't actually find it, but I had screenshot it in my camera roll, and that's where I found that. So if you're curious to see what I used to look like when I started out and the aesthetic of the early 2000s, which I do not recommend you do, but there you go. You will see my very thin eyebrows and just horrific images of me. Let's see. I had a story to tell you guys. I can't remember if I touched on this story early in my podcast recording, like in the first 3 episodes. I don't think I told this whole story. If I did, I apologize, but it's always worth a second listen. So last week I covered my most horrific, gross client. I have covered my most shocking clients, my most gross clients, and now I'm going to do probably what we can call the most unbelievable client story. You will think I'm lying. That's what we're going to call this. You will think I'm lying client story. So I have one about the Illuminati. I have one about the NFL. I also have what I deem to be the most, how do I say this? The most inconceivable client that's ever came to me 2 weeks ago. He found me on Night Flirt. Again, if you guys don't know, my primary platform is nightflirt.com, NITEFLIRT.com. By the way, Night Flirt is now on Instagram, and they are now on TikTok under Night Flirt Flirts Flirt or something. You just put in Night Flirt and you'll see it. It's black and white logo. So they officially have joined the ranks of social media, which is shocking because they've had no social media presence ever previously. So this is very exciting. And it's also super exciting because they are plastering me all over stuff. And I've been waiting for this for 17, 18 years. Okay. So one other thing I wanted to mention is I keep talking about wanting to add guests to my podcast. I'm making headway on those guests. I have an amazingly beautiful dominatrix in Germany. There's one in Poland I really want to get on. They are a little apprehensive because they think their English isn't good enough. I mean, they speak arguably better English than I do, but I'm working on that. But a couple of quick things. If you know of somebody who is a full service sex worker, escort, high-end escort. I really want the high-end escorts, or a FinDom, dominatrix, cam girl, OF girl, or anything in between who would make a great guest, send her to me. Tag her, talk about her underneath my Spotify comments. I'll see it immediately, or send her to me to my socials and make a connection, or to my website. I have the new website, saint2siren.com. So that should wrap up all my little notes. I have a random thought I wanted to add in here. I have a guy that's been texting me on Night Flirt. There's a chat option where, whether you're logged in or not, if you're accepting chats, they can chat you. And I have a guy, he likes to talk about circumcision, and he's constantly asking my opinion on circumcision. His mom did not circumcise him. If you ladies are listening to me, any of you in your flirts or your cam girls or OF girls, and you have these guys in the chat who are just asking your opinion, whether it's rate my dick, let me send you a dick pic, or what do you think about circumcision? Would you circumcise your son? Don't engage them. I had to tell him after 3 sentences, I was nice, I was cordial, but then after 3 sentences, I said to him, if you'd like to discuss circumcision further, you may call my line. This conversation is over. To which he came back at me and said, oh, you won't just chat here about it? No, Mr. Circumcision Fetishist Kingster, I'm not going to sit here for 99 cents per volley and get you off when you're trying to disguise a full session for 99 cents per volley because you're too cheap to pick up the phone at $3.99 and call me for a real session. You're going to disguise it to look like a conversation, but you're sitting there with your dick in your hand, you're stroking it the whole time while you ask me endless, inane, repetitive, circular questions about my opinion on circumcision. So this isn't specific to circumcision. This is specific to the guys that send you the random dick pics, or the guys, there's often guys that will send you pictures of their wives. They want you to rate their wives. Don't engage in it. I used to fall for it years ago. I was like, oh, if I'll just talk to him, he'll buy a session. No, it doesn't work that way. The more you give for free, the more you're giving them opportunity and incentive to never pick up the phone and call you. Everything with you stays behind a paywall, and that includes your opinions and your time. What is our most valuable asset in life? It's not money. It's actually not health. It's time. These guys, and some of them are very good at it, they are going to try to exploit, steal, and take your time while they've got their dick in their hand. And basically, that's tantamount to a free session. Don't do it. Don't fall for it. Unless you are a chatter, then that's a whole different discussion. Then I can teach you how to bait them along, stretching out the session. If you're just a chatter and you don't want them picking up the phone, then you're just going to do a series of questions. Everything they ask you, you quasi answer it, and then you turn around and ask them for each thing they ask. You ask 3 to 5 questions below whatever they just asked, and you get them talking. Remember, at the end of the day, when people think about you, reflect on you after they've met you, they don't reflect on what a nice person you are. They don't reflect on the great conversation. What they reflect upon, and this goes for any person you meet in life, any family member, any person you meet socially, work, doesn't matter, dating, people remember how you made them feel. And you should remember this is the golden rule of how you treat people and how you'd like to be treated. People don't remember the things you said or the things you did. They remember how you made them feel. And if you can get on a human level with these guys and really take an interest, one of the things that I constantly say to my clients is, well, I understand you're interested in sissification, cuckolding, forced buy, tease and denial, forced intox, whatever it is. And I appreciate that. I need to know a little bit about you, because no two forced buy, cuckolds, tease and denial, stalking fetish, no two XYZ clients are the same. So I really need to get some information, because this is not a cookie cutter, one size fits all. This is customized to you and your needs specifically. How do you think that makes them feel? Pretty damn good. Sells the session every time. That's if they're in chat or when you begin the call. On this same note, I also want to add something else. It is very easy for women who enter the phone sex, cam girl, anything adult industry. It's very easy to get the mindset that it's a smash and grab and take advantage of these men, even in FinDom. There's a couple of points I'd like to make to this. First and foremost, I want you to understand that you have gentlemen calling you who have autism, who are lonely, who are widowed, widower, whatever. They lost their wife. You're going to have men, they're very isolated. They don't go out often. There is a sense of compassion that you must bring to this job, or you won't do very well. There's a service that your clients are owed. And even if you're playing a findom bitch, there's a time and a place for everything. And even if your brand is complete and total dominatrix, whoosh, whip, bitch, there still has to be an ounce, a modicum of humanity. Okay, these are men. They have feelings, they have emotions. And unless you're just the smash and grab type, you're in to just go through one client after another, never garnering yourself a clientele list, a repeat client list. You must take notes and take your time and take personal care with each client. How do I do this? The first thing I do is ask a series of questions about how old are you? What coast are you on? Tell me about what line of work you're in. I build a mental profile in my head of who this gentleman is. And that way, when he calls me, and I have the notes in my portal, but I remember, oh, it's Billy Bob from Texas. He owns, oil wells, and he likes to wear his wife's panties, and he's got 2 daughters in college. It just helps because these clients will all run together. So if you don't ask a few specific markers in the beginning, it's very difficult to differentiate one client from another. So immediately I'm like, location, line of work. You don't want to scare them off by asking too many questions, but it's really easy for me to remember Billy Bob, the oil guy, or Tony, the grandfather in New Jersey, or Craig, the cuckold to his wife, the financial planner in San Francisco, or, on and on. Billy, who was sexually assaulted by his stepfather and likes to replay those memories with me because they still, unfortunately, do something to him. So it's more of a psychology session. I don't say, what is your name? I say, what would you like to be called? That's a little less intimidating and off-putting than saying, what is your name? I say, what do you like to be called? Okay. If they ask you what you like to be called, have that at the ready and make sure it's your screen name or a title and never your real name. But I had a gentleman call me yesterday. He's called me many times, and we actually did a cam session for the first time. His name is Peter, and Peter lives in the California coastal area. I knew Peter was older, and I said to him last night, I said, Peter, you're 65. I said, how old are you? And he said 68. And that's when I realized Peter from the coast of California, who likes to stick things inside his pee-pee, which is called sounding, which I made him stop, by the way, after he began bleeding. Yes, that's a true story. As a matter of fact, I'm going to post a clip of Peter on my socials because I recorded some of the session last night. But this is a really anecdotal story for you to take home right now, what I'm about to tell you. I've spoken to Peter many times. I'm usually a total bitch to him because he seems old and kind of weirdo, and he stutters and repeats himself a lot. I just thought he was scattered. Well, we did a cam call, and we did it through, first it was through Night Flirt and Discord, but it was malfunctioning. So then he sent me money through Night Flirt, and we moved our camera to Instagram. When I saw Peter in person, Peter was a little old Jewish man. He's 68 now. It's been 3 years since he's been my client. He was so dear. He was so lovely. He's lonely. And Peter is looking for companionship. I told him, he said he's going to the synagogue. I said, join some groups. Let people know in the synagogue you're looking for a woman, you're looking for a wife, a companionship, And anyway, the long story of it was after we did a session and I was able to bring him to orgasm, which was not that difficult. There was still like 40 minutes in the session. I didn't hang up on him. Normally I would. If he was a younger guy or whatever the situation, normally I'm always the first to disconnect the call. I did not do that. Somehow we got on the topic of the Civil War. We talked about the fact that I'm from Pennsylvania. And I said that I was considering dragging my kids to Gettysburg when we get back to Pennsylvania for Christmas, taking my kids for a side tour to the Gettysburg battlefield before we head on to Manhattan. And we began talking about, have you ever seen the footage of the Confederacy? There's some really old footage of a reenactment of a few old Confederate soldiers from the actual Battle of Gettysburg. And I said, Peter, we lost more men in the American Civil War than any war, correct? He said, we lost more men in the American Civil War than all wars combined. And he was so thrilled that Peter was very autistic. He's a programmer. The minute you hear computer programmer, analyst type of thing, you know that you're dealing with a gentleman who's probably on spectrum. I have a daughter on spectrum. I have a husband on spectrum. I am the spectrum whisperer. So I switched out of Dom mode, which I had been in, and we began talking about everything from the Hessian rebel fighters to the Battle of Gettysburg to the Mason-Dixon line, Underground Railroad, the Louisiana Purchase, Lewis and Clark, the Louisiana Purchase, Meriwether Post, how we ended up getting the money to buy Louisiana from Napoleon, like the whole story. And then we got into like this whole thing about Thomas Jefferson, who is my favorite president. And Thomas Jefferson's plantation is called Monticello. We talked about how he's an extremely controversial. Thomas Jefferson is a completely controversial president, but we deep dove it. He said he's been there. He's seen Sally Hemings, lodging. And, I don't know how much you know about Thomas Jefferson. My point is, we spent 20 minutes of the call, 15 minutes getting him off. And the last 40 minutes we spent talking about history, architecture. My mother is Italian from Florence. My father's Italian from Sicily. I said that my mother's a Spinelli, and the Spinellis were bankers. And he said they were part of the Medicis. I said, actually, the Medici family were rivals to the Spinellis. And Peter said to me, I've been to Firenze. Have you been to the, and we talked. I said, no, it's a dream of mine. I'd love to go. And we talked about the fact that my great ancestor, Giacomo Spinelli, is in the Medici series. I think it was on HBO, in the Priori scene in the courtroom opposite Cosimo Medici. Anyway, it was really fascinating. And Peter says to me, do you know that the Medicis, they invented capitalism? And I said, no. I said, how so? I know that the Renaissance, the seat of the Renaissance is Florence, Italy. And they invented pretty much everything we know about art and culture. That was ground zero. And he said, the Medicis, what they would do is they would get a bunch of investors together. They would invest in a ship, and it would go sail to exotic destinations and come back with rugs and furs and jewelry and minerals and oils. And then they would split up the goods and the proceeds. And he said that was the birth of capitalism. I had no idea. My long and drawn out point here is, you never know who you're going to meet. You never know whose life you're going to touch. I got more out of that conversation with Peter, that last 40 minutes, than I've gotten out of a conversation with any single human being in my life in probably the last 6 months. When we got off the phone, Peter sent me a tip and told me that I am beautiful and brilliant, were his exact words. So I want you to understand, always, always bring a part of yourself and a piece of humanity to this, and you will be surprised how it will hook in the regular clients. It will make you real. It will make the relationship real. And this is what we do. We are in relationship-based business. We are relationship-based selling. What makes Peter pick up the phone and call me versus another flirt? Because Peter knows that when he calls me, he's not just going to get off. Peter's going to have some pretty enjoyable conversation and back and forth banter about topics no one else is discussing in the meantime. So I hope you understand the takeaway here. Treat this not just as a business, but as a personal investment in yourself and these clients, and it will pay in dividends. Let's get to my stories, the Illuminati. I don't want to start with the Illuminati story because I frankly don't like this Illuminati story. The gentleman that used to call me was creepy, and this story has stayed with me for years. It's also a little dicey as far as what I'm going to say. I don't want to turn off any listeners. So let's begin with the NFL story. And the NFL story is not just shocking and salacious, and anybody who's an American, let alone football fan, NFL fan, you're probably going to have to grab your chest and fall over and maybe need CPR after you hear what I'm about to say. This NFL story is not just shocking and salacious and entertainment, but there's an important piece of this when you look at this story, when you listen to my story through the vantage point of the gentleman who was calling me. You're going to see this from a submissive, a client's vantage point, his viewpoint. And that's going to turn everything you know about what I teach and what I do about FinDom. It's going to turn it on its head. I'm going to begin my NFL story with explaining to you how this first began. The guy's name is very recognizable, and it was really funny and very Italian. So we're gonna change his name to Luigi because his name is equally as Italian funny, and I'm Italian, so I can say that. Luigi called me up on Night Flirt. This is probably now going back 5, 6, 7 years ago. Luigi calls me, and he begins to tell me that he was with a bunch of NFL players the previous night. I thought he was full of shit, and I thought it was a fantasy, a role play, so I ran with it. You could tell he was out of breath, and he was excited. He was exhilarated beyond exhilarated. Like, he was so excited, and I was like, okay, this is a fun call. He was a really sweet guy. Now, Luigi, from what I understood, picture like a Danny DeVito type, except taller, much taller, big, beefy Italian man, Luigi, hairy chest, big arms. I think he's overweight. So just picture like a younger, taller Danny DeVito type. Okay. He was all of the sudden just switched into this super effeminate role. And basically, Luigi was a big burly guy that is irresponsible for the new players, the new recruits in the NFL on a particular major NFL team. I'm not going to mention what part of the country because all of this would be easily tracked, and I don't want him outed. So he's in charge of the new recruits who show up, I guess, for training camp at the end of the summer. Now, bear in mind, I've been a cheerleader my whole life. I'm born and raised around football. My whole family, my husband, everybody loves football. But I know nothing about football except for the cheerleading end of it. I guess the new recruits, which are usually young black guys, the new NFL recruits, they come and they show up for the summer camp, and they show up before the seasoned players. And then they get indoctrinated into where to go, what to do, where the training camp is, and everything in between, learning the ropes before the NFL season begins in the fall. So Luigi is responsible for overseeing these boys. Now, obviously, Luigi had a college background football play. He was a college football player. Okay, you don't get into this trainer, leader position unless you have a background in football. So he's a big burly type football player. So he calls me and he's like, I was with all these NFL rookies, recruits last night, and they were doing this to me and they were doing that to me. And then he got off and he hung up, and then he called back again. And you'll get clients like this. They get so excited they come, but then they want to call you back. So over the course of that day, he called me about 4 times. Each descending call, he's telling me more and more details. And I begin to realize this isn't a fantasy. This is really who he is. And this is what he does. This really happened. So now I'm switching gears in my head. I'm taking it from role play to now I have to know everything. So I start asking him and I'm like, wait, this really happened? He said, yes. The players showed up. It's the beginning of training season. He said they come in. I'm in charge of showing them their lockers, showing them where everything works. And every year I invite them to my house, which is, I guess, on the campus of whatever the property is. That part I don't know, but it's within that NFL campus. And Luigi has a house, and a really nice one. And he brings them over for a cocktail evening, kind of like a meet and greet, to get to know each other. Well, this is where it takes a weird turn. The older players tell the rookies that what they have to do is go to Luigi's house when they get there and do sort of a meet and greet and get familiar with him. And he has like a cocktail night, and they watch football, they watch sport, they watch whatever the heck is on at that time of the year. And they kind of get to know each other. As the conversations rolled out, here is the story of what I understood happened. And I know it's what happened because he then became a regular client. And then I got the full details. These young men would show up and he would show them their lockers. He would show them where everything is. And then within the first couple of nights that they're in town, they would come over to his house. Luigi, because the older players on the team had all been through this kind of indoctrination, I don't want to call it a hazing because these young players these rookies are absolutely in charge of what they're doing. They would come over and he would make them cocktails. They would sit on the couch. They start to get to know each other. At some point in the evening, these rookies unzip their pants. They're all sitting on the couch, and there could be anywhere from 5 to 10 to 12 guys. They're sitting there. They pull their pants down. They pull out their cocks. Luigi disappears and goes and changes into pink panties. Now he's got a pink pedicure. He's got a manicure. And I can't remember what else he puts on. Maybe there was like a bow in his hair or something. I can't remember. Like, you guys, are you picturing this? This is like Danny DeVito if he was a college coach, football player, big burly guy with a hairy chest and a hairy ass. He's in a pink thong, a pink pedicure, and now he's on all fours, and he's going straight down the line, servicing each one of these rookies. And when I say servicing, he is pulling their cocks out. He is sucking their dicks. He's stroking them. They're telling him things like, white boy, suck my dick. White boy, suck this big. I can't. I don't know what I can say here, but they would tell him, suck this big, you know what, Igor dick. Come on, white boy. And then, like, he would be completely force femme, sissified. He is a force femme, sissified, submissive. Not even a cuckold. He is a sissy. So he would kind of crawl around, and then at some point, there's usually one guy that takes the lead, gets up, and starts fucking Luigi in his mouth, and then another one will come around him and mount him and start fucking his ass. And then the next thing you know, they are just like, what do you call that? Spit roasting or double teaming, DPing, whatever. They're fucking Luigi every way to Sunday. Who's coming on him? Who's jerking off on his back? Who's turned themselves around on the couch and exposed their ass, and he's just going down the line licking their asses. Now, please bear in mind, this is what I'm being told. And I'm not being told this once or twice. I was told this systematically over a series of years. So again, he's protected enough because I've changed enough of the details that I don't think anybody will figure out who he is. But those of you who are on the NFL team who visited Luigi's house, you know who you are. And yes, I know. So it would turn out that the seasoned players on the team would tell the boys, the rookies, go to the house, and they really didn't know what to expect. And this was kind of like, almost like a fraternity. This was their hazing, their initiation. And Luigi would work in conjunction with the older players to get these guys over there. And it just became a thing. And then all season, they would go to Luigi's house. He would make them cocktails. He'd come out sometimes in a maid uniform even, with his pedicure and his pink panties, and he would serve them drinks, and they would fuck his mouth, fuck his holes, fuck him all night long. This is a true story. And then many of them really got into it. Some of them would go visit him alone. Some of them brought their girlfriends, which brings me to the next part. I found it so difficult to believe that the girlfriends were taking part in this. And I was like, what? Okay, first of all, what do the girlfriends look like? Because you and I both know, because we're women mostly, that you're listening to this. I'm like, what do the girlfriends look like? And he was like, because I'm thinking, if he's lying and he's a man, he's not gonna. He's like, oh, they're thin, they're thin, they're tall, they look like models. They're usually blonde. Sometimes you have a couple of brunettes or Latinas, but they are built, they are thin, or they are curvy. They have expensive purses. So now I'm like, okay, like he was giving me some details. So I'm like, what did they do while they're watching their fiance, husband, boyfriend mount you, spit roast you, double team you? He's like, well, sometimes I make them more drinks. They drink cocktail. I imagine that there was other substance being thrown around. He's like, and sometimes the girls start playing with themselves. And this was at a time where, because it was like 5 to 7 years ago, back then I really had like a hard judgment thing about straight men in relationships, that like I was like, what girl would ever watch their man be with another man, whether they're giving or receiving? And what I know now, all these years later, is that, as I said in the last podcast episode, it's a new landscape. I mean, it's men, especially alpha men. At the end of the day, if he's truly alpha, he doesn't care who owns the hole that's about to get him off, that his cock is about to go into. they only care about getting off. And the shock value of doing it to another man, let alone this big burly white man, let alone being able to add in the race card, the race play. Come on, white boy, open your mouth, white boy. They spank him, they come on him, they make him a mess, they throw him around. I mean, they really abuse the hell out of him, and he loves it. You have to understand, this is his kink. He wants this. The excitement in this man's voice when he calls me, and he's also very high pitched, and sometimes he'll go into a much higher pitched voice. And oh my God, when he comes, it sounds like, I don't want to say it, but it sounds like Minnie Mouse having an orgasm. Like, his voice is so high pitched. But the girlfriends get into it. Sometimes the guys sneak over with the girlfriends, and sometimes they sneak over without them. Like I said, sometimes the rookies go back by themselves. And then once the rest of the team joins, they show up. And now you've got the rookies and the OGs all tag teaming Luigi. So that is the story. And he actually was able to give me enough names that I went and watched football that week, and I saw who he was talking about. And he was pretty accurate in his descriptions. And anyway, that is the story. Now, why would Luigi call me? Well, because a submissive isn't allowed to enjoy himself. He is there to serve. So Luigi wasn't getting any enjoyment. Although he was enjoying being abused, his enjoyment comes, like, you know, like a serial killer who takes like locks of hair and panties and jewelry and like works himself up after the murder by going through his mementos, his token from the murder. It's the same with these guys. They will call me to relive the fantasy. It's the shock value that they tell me, oh my God, can you believe this? No, they love hearing me being shocked. But moreover, they want to relive it over and over again because they weren't allowed to have an orgasm during the tag team dog pile of NFL players and rookies. So now they call me to relive it. So it extends, because it's not a fantasy and it was reality, it extends their enjoyment. It extends the reality of what happened, because now days later they're calling me, they're stroking themselves, they're getting off by telling me the story and reliving the details in real time over the phone with me. So it keeps that fantasy alive. But again, they're also not to show any enjoyment. Like, if he had tried to have an orgasm in front of them, they probably would have beaten the hell out of him. And I do believe there was a lot of physical abuse going on. But again, remember, this is consensual. Luigi wanted to be sissified, fucked, sucked, beaten, gaping, like, you name it. He wanted full CNC. If you guys don't know what CNC is, it's consensual, non-consensual. So it's a grape situation that's been consented to prior. So, and I remember him getting pretty graphic. And I, of course, me, because I'm such a sucker for tea and gossip, I'm like, well, what do I look like? Do you unzip their pants or do they unzip it? He's like, sometimes they unzip it, sometimes I'll do it for them. I'm like, who starts first? And he's like, this one. And I'm like, did they all do? He's like, sometimes the other ones will whip their dicks out, whip their cocks out. Sometimes the others just sit there and wait. Some just like to watch. Some don't let me touch them. Some just stroke themselves. Some just come over and slap me in the face with their cock or come in my face. Some are just interested in anally raping me. I swear to you, this is like, I have no reason to lie. Why would I lie about this? And how could I possibly conjure this story up in my head? So Luigi, if you are listening, hopefully, I haven't heard from you in a few years. I miss you. I love the stories. I hope you're not upset with me for sharing this. And please come back to me, because I would do anything to hear the updated stories of what is happening in your life. So I hope you guys really enjoyed this one, but I know that you'll never view the NFL the same again. And it's not dissimilar to college fraternities in the United States. The things that go on. My brother went to Penn State main campus, and he rushed Delta Upsilon fraternity at Penn State, Maine, his freshman year. My father let him move into the fraternity house and paid dues. Just was like, my dad was paying room and board in the dorms. He's like, fuck it, just the king of Hershey, Glenn Cappetta, can have anything he wants. And he moved straight into the fraternity house, and dad paid the dues. But the things that they made my brother do, which at the time I was in middle school, so I only know a few of them, but all of these things are not that shocking, because it's a group, it's a crew, it's athletics, it's college type situation, it's a group of strong men initiating others. So it's not really that shocking, because if you ever deep dive, especially there's porn out there for like fraternity initiation porn or sorority initiation. And back in the old days, we didn't have, cameras, camera phones, and video and, access to those things. But if you ever look up the porn that's like fraternity, sorority, rush initiation, you'll see far worse than what I'm talking about. So it's not that unbelievable. It was to me 7 years ago, because you think of an NFL player, you think of him dating a supermodel, marrying, some famous singer. But at the end of the day, the take home from this is a whole is a whole if he's alpha. And in the hierarchy of alpha, Big Daddy, Alpha, Bull, especially BBC, who's more alpha in the United States, let alone potentially the world, than an NFL player? Maybe like the Maori rugby players, NFL. They sit to the right hand of God as far as alphaness. So anyway, that's that. Stories like this are the reason that I brought the podcast to these platforms. These are not stories that I can tell on regular social media. These are not stories that anybody would believe unless you followed me and you understand the breadth of experience, the years of experience that I have doing what I do. And I've been discreet. I'm the consummate professional. So I am trusted. These men, especially high level men, trust me with these stories. Maybe not now, they don't. But I'm bringing this information mostly for awareness. I think I'm on this app called Feld, Feeld, and I'm all over the world. I just keep changing my location. I'm talking to men, submissive and dominant, all over the world, and I am learning so much. And I now believe in 2025, almost 26, I now believe more than ever that men, especially powerful men, will derive pleasure in any way they see fit. And it doesn't matter if it's a man, if it's a trans girl. It doesn't matter the whole. I now also know that trans girls are not just a fancy, like a fly by night fancy for some of these men, and off the cuff, a whim, kink, or fetish. I now know that there are absolutely straight men that want to be fucking a trans girl from behind while reaching around and jerking the trans girl. That is a big kink or fetish for what we would consider mainstream straight men. And I think the awareness of what I'm bringing, the exposure of what I'm bringing to the table is incredibly important. And I think women need to know and understand. Not your man? Yes, your man too. As I look through my notes, I've hit on everything I wanted to discuss today, including encouraging you to recommend guests, and I mean really good guests, women that can trump my knowledge, that can better me. I need women that have more experience, different experience than me, to make it an educational opportunity for you, to make it a fun episodes for you to listen to. But I want to learn something. If I'm learning something, you're definitely going to be learning something, and I can always break it down in the correct way. So if you have someone, write it underneath the Spotify comments or Instagram or YouTube or whatever, preferably Instagram or underneath my Spotify. And if any of you are in the adult sex industry, a sex worker, which is really what we are. I may be PSO, phone sex operator, but I am a sex worker, not full service, cyber or virtual, but that doesn't make me any less of a sex worker. I used to get so mad. My older daughter used to call me a sex worker, and I was like, I'm not a sex worker. And now I realize, well, I guess I am a sex worker. So now I'm just embracing it. Remember, with me, it's like pushing a rock up a hill. Many of these terms and things. And also remember, I didn't come out from the shadows until a few years ago. My father died exactly 2 Christmases ago. And if I had ever come out with any of this prior to his death, he would have flown from Hershey to Vegas. My father's never picked up a gun in his life, but I guarantee he would have gotten a gun, learned how to shoot it, and shot me point blank between the eyes with pleasure if my very old school Donato Clemente Cappetta Italian father knew that this is what I was doing. But he can thank himself, because if you've listened to episodes 1, 2, and 3, you know that the reason why I got into phone sex is because he fucking ruined me, because I was trying to have a baby out of wedlock, and he thought that was bringing shame on our family name, which is hilarious because my family is not a family. It's the biggest crime syndicate I've ever seen. I'm deep diving my family on Ancestry right now as a side hobby. I don't know if any of you know, I'm obsessed with DNA and haplogroups. And there's a whole lot of secrets in my family that I'm trying to uncover. And I'm uncovering them bit by bit. It's just the unfortunate part is it's taking me forever because everybody's dead. But I'm bringing shame on the family by being a successful director of admissions for a college, and I owned 3 rental properties, and I was just ready to have a baby because I couldn't find a man I liked, and my parents' marriage sucked so badly. I didn't want to fall into that trap. Silly me thinking he was going to support me. He almost killed me, but instead of killing me and getting me to abort my baby or kicking me in the stomach with the Italian loafer, in which he tried to, again, you have to go back and listen to episodes 1, 2, and 3. I was bankrupted and on the balls of my ass with a newborn baby. And how did I climb back up from the depths of hell? Well, by doing this, by becoming a phone sex operator. First a Scores online chat hostess in the early Wild West days of webcamming. Scores strip club in New York City was opening up their virtual division. This is during MySpace. Facebook was just being invented at that time. And that's how it all happened. So my point is, this is all new to me. I've only been able to come out in the last 2 years because my father is deceased and I don't have to sleep with one eye open thinking he's going to come here and shoot, hang, or run me over. Sorry, Dad, if you're listening from heaven or wherever you may be, but you did this to me, so I have no guilt. But most importantly, I need you ladies to understand that we women, especially those of us raised in conservative homes, really do not understand. Our mothers didn't understand, and our grandmothers certainly didn't understand. I don't think that we understand that men are on a much larger spectrum of sexual curiosity and experimentation at all ages than we know, and those of us who do know would like to admit. And I'm not outing men. I am trying to open a dialogue and a discussion and bring these things out into the open. So the last thing I want to say is I have my book, The Ultimate Financial Domination Guide, which is on Amazon, Kindle, and in Barnes & Noble, and it's Amazon UK. It's all on my website, saintdesiren.com. I'm going to start my memoir this year, and it's probably going to be a several-part memoir. It will be called a memoir in series. And my ultimate goal with this book, because my first book was just helping you girls trying to figure out how to navigate the dangers and the business acumen side of how to become an OF girl, a phone PSO, phone cam girl, that sort of thing. That's what my first book was, how to keep yourself safe and learn the ABCs of starting your own online business from home, sex business, whether you're dominant or submissive, whatever your character is. You could be a witch, you could be anything. But my memoir in series is going to start with how a nice girl from Hershey, Pennsylvania ends up in such a precarious situation and finds herself bankrupt with a newborn baby and climbing out, not just climbing out from the disaster my father placed me in, but building a whole fucking empire on the back of sex that this many years later I've been able to turn around and bring to you all of my lessons. And that's really what this is about. So as I begin writing the memoir in series, I'm going to be looking for a literary agent. I know nothing about literary agents, how to pitch them, but the goal would be to write the memoir, make it as interesting with all of these stories and more that you haven't heard, and then have it turned into a series, not unlike Riley Keough's series, The Girlfriend Experiment or The Girlfriend Experience, which is Elvis's granddaughter. She did a series. I don't know if it was on Hulu or Netflix. I don't remember, but it's called The Girlfriend Experience. And for those of you trying to get into phone cam girl, OF girl work, I recommend that all of you, or high-end escorting, I recommend that all of you watch Riley Keough, Lisa Marie Presley's daughter, in The Girlfriend Experience, because it's the most realistic adaptation or rendition or portrayal of what I do, even virtually. It's the most realistic. So I'd like my memoir to be made into a series for Netflix. But again, I'm much older than the Riley Keough character. She was in college, just graduating college and trying to pay bills. This is a much different situation. My story would lend itself to, younger women, but more older women looking to make a life change. And there's a lot of anecdotal, do's and don'ts and stories on things to watch out for. So I think it would make a good series, but that's what I'm looking for. So if any of you have any advice for me on how to find a literary agent, how to go about the process, and And then how do I get it made into a Netflix series? So anyway, that's the goal. I have such ADHD. If I don't go into each new year with a big list of things that I need to accomplish, then I will just like wilt away. I have to have major projects on my plate and be knocking them down, getting through my checklist one by one. That is the only way that I can function, is if I take on these big projects and I enjoy doing it. So that's the 2026 goal. I wish all of you a very safe, happy, healthy Christmas, Hanukkah, New Year. And I'm super excited for what we're going to do together in 2026, because it's us. It ain't me. I wouldn't be here without you. Thank you for listening.
Qu'est-ce que je vais te nommer? Je vais te nommer.